Welcome back to the podcast of Basketball Love. I'm your host, Josh Verlin, joined as always, my partner in crime, Owen McCue. Hope everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Owen, how was your turkey day?
It was pretty good. Yeah, I just went up to my parents' house. We have all my dad's side over. I'm a big fan of the mix it all together. I put the mashed
Okay.
potatoes, stuffing, corn, and all over the turkey and douse it in gravy. Uh, the broccoli casserole is the low key hidden gem of our thing. Yeah.
Interesting, because that sounds like the kind of thing where if somebody was like, oh, so Sharon made a broccoli casserole, that's probably like the thing I feel like I'm staying away from. So I'm surprised that in the McCue household, the broccoli casserole it's a hit.
It was my neighbor made it, I guess, one year and gave it to my mom to make, and I was a little hesitant to try it, but once I did, that became I don't eat like a lot of it, like it's a casserole, but it's a nice little once a year, a couple times a year type of treat.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to my mother-in-law's sweet potatoes. She like covered them in some kind of butter, something. They were awesome. Had the pleasure of hosting Thanksgiving this year, and thankfully next year my mom will be taking those reins back. But very happy to do it for the 1 year. Good week of hoops. Great week to be talking basketball. Oh, and obviously we are 4 days away from the start of the PIAA basketball season. Most high schools in the area will tip off on Friday, and most of them will play again on Saturday. We've had a few of the private schools that have gotten underway. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk a lot of high school in this podcast. Maybe not going to be our longest episode ever, but we'll definitely get to some high school talk. I do want to start off with talking some college because the City Six has been in swing now for 3 full weeks as of today. Definitely long enough to start to get to feel for like, all right, who's having a good season, who's got some work to do. And I got to say, Owen, it's pretty clear the women's City Six team's off to a much better start than the men's.
Yeah, by a long shot, right? You got St. Joe's undefeated. Villanova was pretty close. They hung with the top 25 Baylor team for their first loss of the season. I've seen Penn up close and have been impressed. Temple is at the bottom of the barrel, but they've done some decent things too.
Temple's good. I mean, they hung with Villanova. They hung with St. Joe's. I mean, they like if Temple is your worst team in the city, that's a pretty good worst team in the city because they've got some firepower.
Yeah, excited to see LaSalle in person last week. I watched them and Drexel when you were at that game on the TV, and I came away impressed with both teams. Drexel was the bigger question mark, but obviously they have one of the best players in the country, not just the CAA.
I was going to ask if you were more surprised by Drexel or St. Joe's, but then I realized it's kind of an unfair question since you didn't really see either of them last year. But I got to say, like, Laura Ziegler has been very impressive for St. Joe's.
Yeah, I got to see them against Penn, and that's a difference maker with her and Brugler both being able to kind of have that size and to both step out and hit shots and be comfortable like playmaking and stuff too. I would have to imagine that's a tough matchup for most teams.
Who do you give your top women's team in the City Six right now? Is it St. Joe's or you give it to Nova?
I think we'll stick with Nova for now. I think they've had the hardest. They really loaded their schedule and look good in that schedule so far. Obviously, St. Joe's got some Power 5 win.
Yeah, I mean St. Joe's won at Vanderbilt is a really good win, and they've had some other beating Temple is no joke. Beating Yeah, no. Oh, sorry, that was LaSalle that beat Drexel. No, I think I agree with you though. I think it's Villanova number 1 right now. We haven't done like an official City Six power rankings on the site just because the men's side it's been good luck figuring that out. But yeah, I think Villanova at the moment Villanova St. Joe's women play each other Saturday, December 10th. So little on 2 weeks until that one. Certainly one of the bigger non-conference games on the schedule as it's turned out. And then on the men's side, I mean, what are we making of this? Not sure what's more surprising. Temple being under 500, Villanova being 3 games under 500 on a 4-game losing streak, or the fact that Penn might actually be the best team in the Big Five right now.
Yeah. Temple beats Villanova, and it's like, okay, maybe we have 2 top 25 teams in the city, and we are far away from that. Villanova, not like obviously that's a tough event they are played in, but who they like a shorthanded Oregon team and a Portland team. Obviously, name wise, you thought Villanova would get out of there. Certainly not 0-3. So even though like I think my expectations were pretty lukewarm for them this year, especially like early with the injuries. That's been an eye opener.
Yeah, like a lot of people have been focusing on, Chris Arcidiacono, and Chris Arcidiacono shouldn't be playing that many minutes. But as I'm looking up their stats here, which I should have had pulled up, it seems to me that it's been guys like Brandon Slater that have not played up to par. Jordan Longino's had some good games, but was not great yesterday. Brandon Slater, he's averaging 11.7 points per game, but he's only shooting 37% from the floor, 25% from three. Longino, 7 of 27, 25.9% from three. Mark Armstrong, 4 of 17, 23%. Arcidiacono's 6 of 20, 30%. I mean, those are not Villanova shooting numbers that we've come to expect. Villanova as a team is shooting 31% from three, and opponents are shooting 38% from three. And that's just not the Wildcats program we've come to expect. And I people are so quick to say, oh, well, this wouldn't have happened with the Jay Wright team. I can't believe that in the span of one off season that all of Jay Wright's coaching has gone out the door and that this is a Kyle Neptune problem.
No,
that just doesn't make sense to me.
The roster is what the roster is, right? There's a lot of unproven commodities. I think a lot of guys are still trying to figure out how to play at this level. And their two best players are hurt, right? So talent wise, they're not.
Yeah, at least two of their best three. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a guy like a Trey Patterson, who this is his third year on campus in total. Second full season after getting there halfway through 2 years ago. I mean, he's 6'9", was a 4-star prospect, and right now they're getting basically nothing from him. And that's a problem, especially on a team when you don't have a true 5-man. You better be sure that the 6'9", 6'8", 6'7" kids you're bringing in are able to bang with those guys. And right now, other than Eric Dixon, they don't really have anybody capable of doing that, especially not for any extended stretch.
Yeah, and it's not the prettiest Villanova basketball you're used to either, right? Maybe that's just because the shots aren't falling, but I mean, obviously Dixon is incredible down there with his bully ball, but it's tough, especially like you said, the other teams are making their threes.
Yeah, now they've got a big game against Oklahoma at Wells Fargo on Saturday. I mean, that's Ken Pom says that's a coin flip, but if Villanova plays the way it did this past weekend, it's much worse than that. Then they get a home game against Penn next week. We'll talk about that in a second. Then Boston College, neutral site at St. Joe's for the Holy War, and then they're into Big East play. So there isn't a ton of time left for Villanova to figure itself out before the conference play starts, and that's a loaded conference.
Yeah. Any positives you've taken away from the men's side so far? Obviously, Penn's had a nice little stretch there at the Cathedral Classic this weekend. You got to see them twice?
Yeah, 2 of the 3. And I saw them beat Drexel, so I've gotten to see them play a few times recently. They're the only team above 500, right? They've got, if you start with positives on the men's side, I mean, they're one of the few for sure. And I do actually think Temple, when Temple has played well, has shown what it can be. But yeah, I mean, Clark Slatchert's taken a big step forward. I think for me, the clear difference maker for Penn right now is Nick Spinoso at the 5. I think when Spinoso is playing well and he gives them that, offensively talented big man at the 5 position who makes great passes and can finish around the rim and play smart and gives them something out of that 5 spot, I think they're a much better team. And I understand that they still want Max Lorca-Lloyd to be part of that, but I think when they give him big minutes, especially then when you compare that, there were some times this weekend they're running a lineup with Lorca-Lloyd, Michael Moshkovich, Lucas Monroe out there. And then if you only have one of Dingle or Slacker, you're really just yeah, you've only got one scorer out there, and that guy's got to do way too much. Whereas if you put that offense out there with Dingle and Slacker, but then also Max Martz, Nick Spinoso, and then that fifth guy can be a little bit interchangeable. Now you've got a lot more offensive pieces, and that's the system that Steve Donahue he needs teams that are offensively good that can get away with some defensive lapses rather than the opposite. He can't win with teams that are good defensively but then struggle offensively. That's not his style.
No, and they have, like you said, he's the guy that makes it run, and then Dingle's going to be one of the best shot makers of that conference again. And if Clark can keep kind of knocking down shots in the way he's doing it, that's a nice little backcourt they have.
I also think, and you've seen him too. I mean, I think Drexel is actually a positive story in the city. I think they've got some pieces, and Amari Williams is really good.
I've gotten a chance to see the top 3 or 4 projected teams in the CAA, with Hofstra, Towson, UD.
Delaware.
Yeah, so I think I've only watched Drexel on TV a little bit and saw them play really, really well for about 35 minutes against Temple yesterday. Was that yesterday?
Saturday. Yeah, yesterday. Right.
Yeah,
sorry.
It was yesterday. Yeah. Sorry.
What day of the week is it?
Long weekend. But yeah, I mean, Amari Williams was unbelievably impressive against a Temple front court that had really impressed and imposed its will on teams at times this year. You saw that Reynolds in the Villanova game. Moore's obviously going through a learning curve, but he looks pretty darn impressive at the point guard spot too. I wouldn't obviously project them to be the conference favorite, but from pure eye test, it seems like they will be able to hang with anybody in that conference.
Yeah, Ken Pom has them right now going 11-7 in the CAA. Their worst game in conference is 21% to win at Towson in January, and that's not terrible, all things considered. And I think if they, especially if they could go 12-6, I think they would take that. I think they would consider that a successful year in the CAA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else college-wise that we haven't touched on yet? Maddie Segrist gets her 2,000th. Congratulations to her on that. It seems like almost a guarantee she'll be Villanova's all-time leading scorer by the time she departs.
I mean, her and Key being 2 of the top 3 scorers and having 2 of the top 3 scorers.
They're now 1 and 2.
There you go.
Segrist is 1. Keishana Washington is 2.
Yeah, so if you're looking for someone you need to watch this year at the city, those 2, write it down. I mean, that's pretty cool to have the top 2. We'd have to do a little research, I guess, to find out that, but that's pretty damn cool to have the top 2 scorers in the city playing. And they're fun players to watch too. They do more than score.
For sure. I don't know how you would begin to know if at any point there were the top 2 scorers in the city, but I can't imagine that it's happened much, if ever, before. All right, so coming up this week, we've got LaSalle playing Penn on the women's side. Should be a good game. Owen will be there tomorrow night. Wednesday is going to be a really fun night. Doubleheader at the Palestra on the men's side. LaSalle Temple at 6, Penn St. Joe's at 8:30. We've also got Drexel Lafayette at 7 across the street. Going to be a fun night of coverage. Owen, you'll be there at the Palestra for the doubleheader. I will be there for most of that, but I'm also going to try to catch some of Drexel Lafayette. So look forward to that piece of me running around the city like a crazy person while Owen holds it down at the Palestra. And then Jerome Taylor will also be at Drexel Lafayette. And then we'll have Ty Dalbert and Joe Santoliquito at the Palestra as well. So Wednesday, it will be all over the city. Thursday, Penn plays Stony Brook on the women's side. Should be a good non-conference game. Ty Dalbert will be there for that. And then Friday, that takes us to Owen, the start of the high school season. Actually, really quick before I get into that, should note that on Saturday, a great college slate in addition to the high school stuff. Villanova, Oklahoma, as we mentioned, at the Wells Fargo Center. Then I think it's 6 other home games. Temple, VCU on the men's side. St. Joe's, FDU on the men's side. LaSalle, Lehigh on the women's side. Drexel, Princeton on the men's side. Penn, LaSalle on the men's side. And Temple, UMBC on the women's side. So a doubleheader at Temple, the Penn, LaSalle Big 5 game. And then a few others sprinkled in there, which if you didn't notice my story on the site the other day, Penn will be playing its 4 Big 5 games in a row. Owen, before we go into high school, what are your chances you're giving Penn going 4-0 over the next 10 days, winning a Big Five title?
4-0. Do a little probability. What would I don't know? What's 0.5, 0.5? If they're all toss ups, what would the odds be? I think that's probably what. Yeah,
Oh.
we'll say 10%. I don't know. I'm not. I gotta.
I think that's 6.25% would be
Yeah.
like
As
5,
someone,
4.4.
I
I think
think.
it's slightly better than that.
Okay, I think most of those games are gonna be toss ups this year. I don't know. Talent wise, Temple I think could be a possible mismatch for them. I'm curious to see how they match up against Villanova. Because if they could shoot and score, Villanova's having trouble putting up points. So
Yeah, Villanova does not have that true 5-man. Spinoso and Dixon is actually kind of a really interesting matchup. I'll give it like 10% that they can actually do it. The interesting question would be if they can go 3-1, would that be enough? Will
yeah,
Temple drop another game? Will Villanova drop another game? I get the feeling we're going to end up with a split title this year.
yeah, that's what it's. I don't. Obviously, each fan base would probably say we're underrating their squad, or maybe the opposite. I know some people really like to. We are Philadelphia fans,
Yeah, right.
like
Everybody
to
thinks
really
their
get
squad is the worst.
But yeah, I think a lot of those games are going to be really good. The classic Big Five basketball games, as you hear in every press conference during those games. But I'm sure we'll hear a couple that down at the doubleheader. When's the last time they had the doubleheader?
Oh man, you're asking me all these sorts of questions on the fly. Last Palestra double. It's been a while. It's
I
certainly.
remember when I was in school, they
Oh,
had
no,
it.
there
And
was 2016. Yeah, Temple LaSalle
yeah,
and St. Joe's Penn. Okay.
okay, yeah. Someone had asked me the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, I remember covering that." But yeah,
I
so
was gonna say
that's
early
cool.
in the COBL years, but that was a little. I mean, it was still kind of early in the COBL years, but not as early as I thought it was. But yeah, anyways, now after, as I've said like 4 times, that we're about to get to high
Yeah.
school, and then I realized that we shouldn't get to high school yet. All right, let's get to high school. We're not going to do like a full-on high school preview. There are like 400 teams that we cover in our area. We've been running a lot of team previews on the
Yeah.
site. Please, if you haven't checked out our Prepping for Preps previews, do so. We'll have high school league previews running this week and next week. We're not going to get to them all before the season starts, but we'll get to them all before mid-December on the site. But we do have a busy slate ahead here, Owen. I think there's something like 52 games on the boys' side, 57 games on the boys' side Friday night, 44 games on the girls' side Friday night. I don't have an exact count for Saturday yet because a lot of the games on the site are like TBDs and they're
Yeah.
all going to condense down, but it's a similar number. So we got about 170 to 200 just in games just involving area teams this weekend. So we'll be at one or two of them. Owen, what are you always looking forward to the most about sort of the opening weekend of the basketball season?
It's a good question. I mean, writing preview stuff and everything sounds so good on paper, and then I mean, even watching teams in the preseason, there's just something different about when the games count. Uh, Not to sound too coachy talking here, but yeah, it is. It is fun because you see these teams for the first time make impressions. Well, you hear first of all, you talk to the coaches, talk to the players, and you kind of build an idea of what they could look like. You see them in person. And then by the end of the season, some of those teams are completely different. Some of them have kind of ascended. Some of them have descended. Yeah, I don't know. It's so much unknown, and I feel like in the area this year too, there's only a handful of maybe on the girls' side there's more established teams, but on the boys' side certainly I feel like there's only a handful of teams that like public school teams that you kind of know what you're getting. So that's what I'm excited to see, kind of, and you see some interesting matchups too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think similar for me, it's like we spend, basically from the end of last March,
Yeah,
April, spending 7 months watching off-season workouts and AAU events and team events, but where you don't have your whole team because some players play other sports or what have you, or kids are hurt or on trips or so you're just sort of you see the preparation, but what that actually means when the lights really turn on isn't always, you can see some teams have great summers, and then when the season comes, they're not quite what we thought they were going to be, or teams that didn't have great summers because they were missing a few pieces that all of a sudden, they're 9-0, 3 weeks into the year. And the season goes by so quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 22 games for the regular season for most of them, and you think like, okay, like 22 games is a lot, but man, it's like so quickly. It's January, and your
Yeah.
season's halfway over, and the district standings are up, and the race is really on. I mean, it's not like college where you wait 4 or 5 weeks to play your first conference game. I mean, we're gonna have league matchups starting next week.
Right.
And within a couple weeks, we're already going to have, some sort of separation a little bit in some of the leagues. So it's always so interesting how that, it's like, all right, we're starting on Friday, but like pretty, it matters, instantly.
And I guess you kind of hit on it, but like the names that just pop up, like you see a couple box scores fly in, and like you said, people are chit chatting about who's going to be this, who's going to do that this season, and you have a good idea of most of the top players in the area, and then all of a sudden you see a couple 20-something point games slide in from this kid you've never heard of before, and it's like, oh, let's go watch this kid and see what's going on.
Right. And then inevitably that game you go watch that kid is the game he has like 2 points and hits
Yeah.
one shot. But sometimes, but no, you're right. There's always, oh yeah, he moved here from Oklahoma 3 weeks before the season
Yeah.
began, or he was hurt and we didn't know
Yeah.
what we were going to get, or again,
6-inch growth
sometimes,
spurt.
right. Or just, again, when it counts and you're not just rotating players in and out and a player really earns minutes and just stays in that rotation, things change with how you thought your lineup was going to be. So some really interesting tournaments we've got this weekend. I'm not going to name all of them because there's a lot of them, but some interesting ones that you're more likely than not to see CoBL writers at Souderton. Really good boy-girl doubleheader. Abington, Saudi, Ruston, and Mount St. Joe's on the girls' side. Doc Benedict against Upper Dublin, Souderton, Lansdale Catholic on the boys' side. They did move the Upper Dublin Doc Mennonite boys game really early so the Upper Dublin boys can go see their football team. I would imagine the basketball team is going to be a little shorthanded because I know some of their best basketball players are also football players. Are they in the state championship semifinal? You know that stuff better than I do. I don't know what's going.
Semifinal. I forget.
I
They
think
did change
semis.
the. Is that District 1 champ goes straight to the semis and 6A? I don't.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Well, you're not covering football anymore, so no worries.
Yeah. I never had
At
to get that far anyway.
Unionville, at Unionville, also girl boy doubleheader. Girls open it up with New Hope Solbury against Hatboro Horsham. Boys have Conestoga Holy Ghost Prep, and then Unionville Friary School from Delaware, and then the girls have Unionville Conestoga Valley. Good girls doubleheader at Downtown West, Kennett Radnor, Downtown West Phoenixville, and another girls one at Methacton, Harriton, Interboro, Ridley, Methacton. Boys at Wissahickon, the Triangle Club Tournament, GA LaSalle, Wissahickon, Norristown is a really good one. At Hatboro Horsham, you got Pennsbury Northeast and Hatboro against Robeson. And then at Pope John Paul II, you got Perk Valley, CB South, PJP, CB West. Some other good matchups. Archbishop Carroll plays Penwood. Roman Catholic plays PW on the boys' side. Downtown West plays Archbishop Wood. So some, really good, interesting mix of tournaments of singular games. Still not sure yet where exactly CoBL will be that night, but we will be all over the place. That's for sure.
You recall any takeaways you had for the first weekend last year? Any fun games you saw at the beginning of the year last year?
I don't specifically recall the beginning of last year. Where was I? I think I remember Moscow.
That is to December. Just all the big events blend in. Just boom,
Yeah,
boom, 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 boom.
I'm so bad that you would think like, no, it's a year ago. I should be able to remember this. And now I feel ashamed that I can't. I'm sure that I'm forgetting something here. Let me see. I'll pull up my. I need to jog my memory, and I don't have my notebook on me. And you can see Owen and I planned really well for this podcast and definitely discussed all the things that we were going to be talking about, so that I was totally ready for this. Oh my gosh, how many stories have I written in the last year? Let's find out. Oh, it came pretty close. Interesting. So the first game last year wasn't until. Oh no! Wait, I'm looking at 2009. This is a total fail. Here we go. What games did I add? There's all my college coverage. This is super fun. I'm sure people are really going to be loving watching this on the stream. I didn't jump right into high school stuff as much last year. I was still doing a bunch of college things. Malvern Prep. I wrote the Andrew Phillips story, but that was December 19th. That was like one of my first stories that I read. So that's why it does feel like the Moscow Classic was so early. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't cover. I think just with grad school and everything, I didn't get out to nearly as many games as I wanted to. Afternoon classes and things that just really prevented me from getting to nearly as many games. So that was 2 minutes wasted for nothing. So the answer would be no, nothing really. Oh man. We are not professional podcasters, that's for sure. No, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. I'm looking forward really to putting the high school previews out. I don't really want to talk too much about any of the league previews we're doing because I don't really want to spoil who our picks are. But I do want to give a shout out to Chad Graham, who's written some really good stuff already. We'll have Catholic League previews, assortment of Chessmont, Suburban One, Pioneer, Friends League, Interact, boys and girls things running out over the next 2 weeks. Oh, and are there any specific teams? I know since you've asked me questions that I wasn't totally prepared for, any specific teams that you're especially just sort of curious to see how they, hit the ground running or don't in these first few weeks here?
Good question. How about Plymouth Whitemarsh, boys and girls, right? Kind of on opposite sides there. The girls have some talent back, but they lose a whole lot of other pieces from last year's undefeated team. They still probably go into the district as one of the favorites or at least contenders.
Yeah, certainly
right?
a contender. I don't know if I'd call them the favorite with some of the other 6A teams out there, but certainly a contender.
And then the boys side hasn't had kind of some of the sustained program success as Donofrio has had in his teams before, but I think kind of talking to him, he sounds pretty excited about this group and watching them a lot this offseason. It seemed like there's a lot of talent there. So keep your eyes on PW. Maybe that's just because I'm moved to Conchi and they're right around the corner.
I sort of had similar thoughts with Archbishop Wood, actually, boys and girls. Girls graduated a lot, but still a really strong program. I don't know if they're the Catholic League favorites. I mean, O'Hara also graduated a lot. Carroll graduated a bunch, but has a bunch back. It feels like the girls, as wide open as the boys side is in the Catholic League, the girls might even be more wide open. Lansdale Catholic might be the favorite. They're terrific. And then on the boys side at Archbishop Wood, you have this team that doesn't really have many seniors. They have this great junior class, some really impressive sophomores, Carson Howard, the senior in the middle. And they're a program that under John Moscow these last, 6, 7, 8 years now has shown like they're going to be in the mix every year. But this is not, a team loaded with seniors that's been there before. They have Jaleel Bethea, and then they have a lot of unproven talent in a really deep league. And so, you could tell me in February or come February that, Archbishop Wood is the best team in the Catholic League and they're going to win it all. And I'm not going to be shocked. But you could also tell me they're going to finish in 5th or 6th, and that wouldn't stun me either. That's just the nature of how good that league is. I would lean more towards them being the best team in the league than I would lean towards them being 6th. But, it's not totally out of the question.
I guess like to see that Radnor team in action, right? They're kind of on the boys' side, the biggest proven commodity and kind of got better this offseason, right? With Jackson Gaffney into the
I have not heard yet if he's playing. That'll be interesting to see if he gets a waiver or not. It's a good reminder for us to figure out. It's seeing if he's allowed to play, because certainly, with him eligible, I mean that's that's almost a powerhouse right there.
Yeah. I don't. I guess that's it's hard to say kind of what else, because I am excited to see kind of everybody, right? I haven't had my eyes around the district too much until playoff time. Obviously, the Pack had some good runs, especially last year on the girls' side and the boys' side too, right? Two of the semifinal teams. So I've been able to follow and see some of the best teams in the district over the past couple of seasons, but I haven't been able to kind of tap into what exactly is going on in the Chessmont and Suburban 1. So I've been trying to make sure I got my history up to date and did my foraging through the standings and the rosters this offseason to hopefully be in good shape. But yeah,
it's a lot to remember.
Yeah.
I don't think people are like, there's a lot. Like, we cover like 440 teams in this region. It's a lot to remember. The good news is, for our podcast folks, is our writer Ty Dalbert will be taking an increased role with CoBL starting this week and moving forward for the rest of the season. And he'll be sort of taking the lead on the podcast. So we should see some more episodes and things popping up. We're going to figure out more ways to incorporate it because it's a really neat platform that we just haven't really taken advantage of enough this fall. But to be fair, there's been a lot going on. Tons of content on the site. And if you're watching this or listening to this, you're surely aware of how much we've been putting out. Thank you all to all of our listeners, our readers, also known as our leaders, our listener readers, for all you do to support CoBL. We really appreciate it. Looking forward to getting the high school season underway. Owen, thanks so much for talking some hoops tonight. And I will see you on Wednesday as I scamper around the palestra.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.